These gloves was a good addition.
All right, so, is Amina, and I am pronouncing that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is Amina just so incredibly powerful physically that she could overpower
Yeah.
Ethan and Toya?
No. We said yes with confidence too. Yes.
Yes, she is that powerful?
No.
No, she's not.
I think it was just the length that we were.
Well, length definitely has something to do with it. Do you think you were just? Unfortunately, I never hit pause on that, so whoever's watching this video later will just have the blank board here while we were in the hallway. Why was she able to do it?
They weren't pulling hard enough.
I heard two different things. So, for Isabella, you said,
The tension was weaker in the middle.
oh, that it sort of faded as the farther away you got. Actually, the tension of the rope probably is relatively the same throughout, because that particular rope doesn't stretch a whole lot, so tension is pretty constant. And Sakira?
You don't-
Sakira?
No,
Nope.
don't worry about it. I think neither one was like, oh, you want me to enunciate? I'm sorry. I think they weren't pulling hard enough.
Ah, it was their
We
fault.
weren't. She didn't feel it. That's why we got gloves.
Now, that last time, Ethan, I saw you were leaning back. You were too, right?
Yes,
You were
I
both
had to
leaning
tell him
back.
to don't pull too kids.
And
And
you're-
he's strong. He almost pulled me.
Your feet slipped a little bit when she was pulling, well, when she was pushing, right? Okay. Did your feet slip?
My feet wasn't slipping.
Okay, that was all on him.
That was it.
All right, so, other people.
I'm just thinking it was the length of between me and him, and it allowed her to pull it down.
But why did the length matter?
The two
I was,
before?
I can't really explain it, but I just felt like because it was so long, she had room to pull it down.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll expand on that. Length does play into it. Brittany, you had your hand up, and Brittana, I want to hear what you said also, but
I think the force that's, it decreases, like the length of the, at like the middle of the rope, like the force on that side is like the strongest where they're pulling, and then it decreases. Maybe.
not going to be a significant difference between the force all along the rope. It's not,
Back to the tension.
the amount of force is not the critical piece there. Brittana?
I was gonna say something about the force too.
Oh, did you have a different comment about the force?
No, basically that's what I was thinking.
Now, before, oh, anyone else? Sorry.
Maybe it's where she was pressing at.
Pardon?
Maybe it was where she was putting the force at.
What would that have to do with it?
I was kind of thinking that if she was like closer to one of us and she tried to pull it down where, kind of closer to where we were standing, it would be a little harder.
It would be. And that's going to connect with Toya's comment about how long it was. But why?
She's strong.
It might come down to that. I've done this for years, and especially middle school when brains just aren't working right. You get the two biggest guys, and then you get the smallest person, and the smallest person can still put it down. With a rope as long as it was, there's no way you two were going to win.
Yeah, that's what.
Does it have something to do with the direction of motion and length?
Ooh.
She was.
Yes. When you said direction of motion, what do you mean by that?
She's pulling that way, he's pulling that way,
She's going down.
but she's pushing down in the middle because the length is the way that it is, like her force of motion going down in the middle is stronger than at the ends. I don't
Your
know.
wording is almost there. You
I was about to say.
so
she-
incredibly close.
Explain it.
Is there another hand I saw?
I'll just do this with my hands.
Oh. When you two were pulling, before Amina touched it, Did you feel tension in the rope?
Yeah.
Okay. As she was pushing down, did you feel like the tension was increasing, decreasing?
I felt like it was decreasing.
Oh, okay, and
Yeah. It was lesser. When I was pulling down.
You said it remains the same though.
the tension throughout the rope, I wasn't saying that
Tension remains the same, but
the tension in the rope was the same throughout it, not necessarily with time. I mean, it's possible that the tension changed, but it would have changed throughout the entire rope. All right, so you two were feeling tension before she touched the rope. Where was most of your effort? Which way were you pulling on the rope?
I was pulling back.
And you?
Pulling back.
Yeah. Almost all of their effort was fighting each other. Going with what Brittany was saying. When Amina started pushing down to start out with, did you find it, when you were pushing down, was it easy the entire way, or did it get harder as you went, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It looked easy for her.
Well, then there's also, Jesus. So we start out with pulling this way and this way. Almost all their effort is horizontal. She comes in with a push downwards. There's nothing to fight it. And I think that's what Brittany was saying. As she gets farther, it should have gotten a little bit harder. If the rope is really long, you might not notice it. If it's shorter, you definitely would notice that it gets harder the more you push down. Because at the end, when the rope is now like this, she's pushing down this way, he's pulling up that way, and Toya's pulling up that way. There's now some part of this which is opposing that, because this is up and to the right. So the up piece of it is opposing Amina. The part that's to the right, that's still fighting Ethan. So, what does this have to do with the rest of the course? Direction matters. Hopefully we can get a marker which shows up a bit better. The other thing that matters is how hard they were pulling. Do you remember from the first time you did it to the last time you did it? Did it get harder as you went?
I think it got harder.
Because it looked like they were putting more effort in. So at least that last time they were leaning backwards. Breaking out the new markers for you.
I was just about to say, I just said I'm buying some markers, but then you pulled out the markers, okay?
Or not. Please write. All right. So we have two key ingredients here. One is direction, the other one is amount or magnitude. Magnitude tends to be the word that's used a lot. So I'll put in parentheses here, magnitude, and try to write it more neatly. If these two things both matter, we are now dealing with something known as vectors. Vectors will show up throughout the entire course. The math's a little bit different with vectors than it is with other stuff. It's not complicated, it's just different, because you have to take direction into account. So, if I'm starting right here, and I take 3 steps to the right, my right, and then 3 steps to my left, how many steps did I take? Where am I relative to where I started? All right, so ultimately I've gone nowhere. I'm exactly where I was before. So we have words to differentiate between the two. The distance I traveled was 6 steps. My displacement, 0. So part of this idea of vectors is that we have different words, usually. So some of the key words that automatically say, hey, we're dealing with a vector, force is one of them. Displacement is another one. So if you get a question asking about displacement, you should be immediately thinking, direction matters. I'll get into better definitions later. Now, if it's not a vector, so for example, a distance, this is the math, this is the kind of stuff you've been dealing with since kindergarten. If it's not a vector, what is it called?
Scalar.
Yes. How many of your kindergarten teachers talked about scalars? Yeah, when I taught elementary school, I made sure I used this word just so that when they got to this point, they go, oh yeah, I remember doing that in elementary school. Yeah, now scalar is not a term that's used typically in elementary school, but that's what you've been doing. You were doing scalar math up until potentially right now. So scalar math is 3 plus 3 is 6. Vector math is 3 to the right plus 3 to the left is 0. So besides the words, how do you know you're dealing with a vector? Well, there are a couple symbols that I use. I put a little symbol over top of it, and this is the indication that we're dealing with a vector. The fact that I have that symbol there. On a test or quiz, because it's a lot easier to do when you're using a word processor, it will look like that. I generally do what I call the half arrow in the board just because it's a whole lot easier. I can do it without lifting the pen. Some textbooks, if you're reading in some other books, you might see there's boldface. Some textbooks will use boldface to indicate that you're dealing with a vector. Obviously, it's a nuisance to do when I'm writing on the board. And then what I call the double print. Some textbooks will do that. And again, this is if you're looking at other sources. Hewitt does not use, well, he identifies vectors and not vectors either by the word or by context. The double print I actually use in one place when I talk about resultants. It's an A. So that's the one place where I, for whatever reason, I generally blame childhood scars, but whatever reason, I use the double print R for that. Now some of you might be thinking right now, oh, that's great, but what is a resultant? That's just the fancy word for sum. If I add two vectors, I get a resultant. If I add two scalars, I get a sum. If I said, what's the sum of these vectors? That works also. I'm asking the same as what's the resultant. All right. There are videos galore. If you go, once you've done the course entry assignment at least once, you can then get into the coursework. Under chapter 2, there are videos. I go through this in the videos as well, so please, I am expecting that you're watching the videos. Questions right now before we transition? All right. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. Yeah, I think officially there's a 10-minute break between class and lab. Then we'll do lab, so I need to go get that equipment. And we'll reconvene, except for Toya. We've had enough of you.
You guys have a good day. See you later.
sticks, tape, got it.